It's a real honor and pleasure to be here and share my experience, my organization's experience with Signal Elections, which is again a digital way of participation, actually about elections, even more serious than the petitions which we heard, because elections, of course, although not real elections, but signal or mock elections as we tend to use in English, it is, well, election process sometimes is even more serious than petitions or initiatives. And I'll share the Latvian perspective of it, because we were working completely digitally in this, this part, and with some positive and some also negative experience, which I'll try to share. But before starting so, I would love to tell just 2-3 things, because we are meeting in a very remarkable place here. What was not said just by the speaker before, that actually 50 meters down in the direction of city center, Manabals was started. This platform for petitions started approximately 50 meters down the street on the island in the Daugava River, where actually a big demonstration took place against politicians who were too close to one big oligarch in the east. So it was a big anti-oligarchic demonstration, where actually the idea of Manabals was born more than 10 years ago. And one more significant thing is actually, well, not in this demonstration, but actually in just 50 meters into the park, there used to be an occupation monument. Big monument which was honoring the communistic regime or communistic occupation of Latvia. And this, although Latvia was independent already for more than 20 years, it still remained there. And each day when elderly people or people, well, there's no one in Latvia which has not suffered in some way from the communistic regime, where there is not one relative or neighbor who has been deported and or killed in Siberia. This monument was always a permanent reminder of this occupation, and you can imagine that the suffering goes on if you have to pass such a monument every day. And actually it was an initiative as well on the platform 2017 to get rid of this monument, which then finally, when the full-scale war against Ukraine started, was demolished. So actually one more success, so to say, linked to the digital perspective and to the place where we are here. And just a third thing about this very special thing, which is not digital, but which is very specific to Latvia. In this very place where we are sitting now, this used to be the stage of one of the first or early song festivals in Latvia. You might have heard about the song festival tradition. 2 million Latvians, 2 million songs. Well, song festival every 5 years, like the Olympic Games, one of which took place here in this place, where actually the stage was located and the audience was sitting in the park. So that's just linking digital dimension to where we are. So, but now let's jump into mock elections in Latvia, Signal elections, as we call them. Signal, as it is a youth voice on how do youngsters see their future. How would they vote if they would have the right already at 16 or 17 years of age to vote, as a signal for the adults and as a signal to the politicians on how to do things and what to do. Can I ask, actually, I would prefer really working with you and not pushing the button myself, so just take the next slide. The idea of mock elections exists actually in several European countries, mainly in Northern European, in the Nordic states. We took it as a pilot project to Latvia, changed some things, as you will see, and we had 3 different stages, because for us the main goal was that it is an educational tool, a civic engagement, civic education tool, by using John Dewey's main principle of learning by doing. You learn best by doing and not by telling what democracy is. You have to practice. And there are several surveys saying as earlier you start voting, as bigger the chance that you would continue also to do so. And the easiest place where to reach people is, of course, during school time. So we did take over this this best practice from the northern countries in this spring's municipal elections. And as I said, it was purely online organized. 16, 17-year-olds, but as we had super limited funding, we did most of the work on a voluntary basis. Part of the work which we did was co-sponsored by the Nordic Council, but actually as big parts were done on voluntary basis and with really limited resources. We made in this pilot project a selection of only a couple of municipalities where youth could participate in these mock elections just as a learning exercise. And now already next fall we will have, for the parliamentary elections, we'll have full-scale elections on this. The municipalities in which we did the mock elections, we had big discussions whether to choose them, to look for the most active municipalities so they could apply to us, or whether to do another system. At the end of the day, we chose a random selection of municipalities, so there is no chance, or no one would say, okay, it's those municipalities who work most actively with youngsters, that they have organized this and they do it for PR purposes, for campaigning or whatever. So we did a random selection, a lottery on those on the municipalities, plus the 3 biggest cities which were chosen in addition. Let's take the next slide, please. How it looked like, and actually I think most probably you know it yourselves as well. Youngsters nowadays, you know what they say. In Latvia, it's I think more or less the same as in your countries. They say, or a lot of them say, Trump is great, good for democracy. They say, they look on these Tate brothers and say, even I've heard from youngsters saying this shut up bitch sentences, which is widely used and shared on the internet between YouTubers and TikTokers, etc. Well, this kind of brutal narratives are coming into schools through the digital world, which is actually deeply undemocratic. We hear youngsters who say freedom of speech in Britain is under danger because people are put in prison because of, well, all these fake narratives which exist because they express their will, and actually which is completely upside down in relation to the realities. So that's the reality in school, and at the same time youngsters say, who cares about us? No one really cares, and we are 16, 17, even they don't even believe in their own voice. They say perhaps even we should not have a real voting right for the real elections. That's as well, when talking with youngsters, they don't even believe that they should, or a lot of them don't believe that they should have real voting rights, because they say, well, we don't know enough. So it's this very self-critical approach which lots of Latvians have. At the same time, they say, we want to be heard. And at the same time, they say, actually, the most interesting and striking for me is that the youngsters in Latvia, they say, in most cases, when you have to prioritize, they say, we want to be equal, equally treated, us as youngsters equally with adults, but also with other Europeans, that we don't feel as second-class citizens within the EU. And I think this way through mock elections and others is one more possibility how to make them better to understand the realities, how they can impact reality. And actually already, although these are mock elections only, we had several real impact to real world, which I'll come back to. The biggest interestingly enough, the biggest difficulties which we were facing when we were designing the project was actually the point which we see in the second bullet at the end, is fear from sides of teachers and politicians. When we suggested to take over the the Northern European tradition of mock elections, there were several politicians which at the beginning were super much in favor, that said, oh, this is such a great initiative, let's go ahead. And then sometimes, at some stage, they understood, oh, perhaps my political party is not that popular among youngsters. The fear, well, I think which you know as well from your countries, is that youngsters might be rather tending to vote for populistic or radical parties because they spend a lot of time with TikTok, etc. So suddenly, although we had a very enthusiastic starting point, actually at the end we got calls from the anti-corruption office, from different other places in saying, hey, is it smart to copy-paste the northern tradition and publish the results of the mock elections before the real elections have started? And at the end of the day, we were more or less forced to publish the results at the same day when the public polls, well, the real elections were stopped, to avoid this risk of populistic impact towards the youngsters, that the youngsters might be misused from political radical forces as part of their election campaign. But actually Northern European practice, and actually as we will do next fall, is we will publish the results earlier and not on the day only when the elections are finished, because it has to be a signal for the adults how youngsters would vote. So the fear there was actually one of the biggest challenges, and also the fear from teachers. Because the great thing, or the interesting thing when we talk about elections, schools have to be neutral, politically neutral, of course. And that is actually the job of schools, to be politically neutral. But the danger is that the teachers, they fear, how is it going to be when, as soon as I'm going to analyze political party programs, which is one of the part of the mock elections, isn't there a danger that actually people will say, I'm politically engaged in favor of one or the other political party? And then this fear, this chilling effect, actually, as I would even say it, from the teacher's side was, again, one of the aspects which we had to work with and to explain the difference between educational task, which is crucial for school. School has to work on also informing on what citizenship means and what elections mean, but not to promote one certain political party. So there is quite a difference between campaigning and informing or education. But this is still in Latvia, well, some of the teachers used it by purpose, by saying, okay, this is the reason why we don't want to talk about elections or don't want to participate, but others. Let's go to the next slide. I'm a bit perhaps too slow. Different stages. We signed a cooperation agreement with the Nordic Council, which was co-sponsoring the event, and the Ministry of Education, where we had superb support from the minister and also from the administration side. And I'm myself from the European Movement in Latvia, which is a pro-European organization, but we did the project together with the Youth Council, which is the umbrella organization of all youth organizations. And there were different stages. First, we organized in those 15 municipalities where the elections took place, online-wise and in face-to-face contact think tank meetings like today, youth working sessions on their priorities. What would they like to change in their municipalities? And the priority list was not only on transport. We can take the next slide, actually. Interestingly enough, the suggestions the youngsters came up with was not only transport or more sports facility or free lunch in school. See, the last point in the third bullet is social inclusion actually matters quite a lot. They care about elderly people. It was almost in all municipalities, they say it's not fair if a pensioner has to suffer, or actually that it is the choice whether to pay rent or medicine or whatever, that there has to be more fairness in our country. Extremely interesting findings already in this think tanking part. As I said, it was possible to send in ideas online-wise and to participate in these face-to-face discussions. But of course, a lot of things as well on transport. This night trams, which were important for Riga citizens, came up here. And that's actually one idea which it's always hard to understand whether it is one reason or a multiplicity of different reasons why an idea is implemented. But 2 weeks after the youngsters had worked on it and presented it to Riga City Council political party representatives in a shared discussion, this idea was implemented. So whether it is already a direct link to the mock elections or whether it's in parallel, there was this signatures collection going on Manabals, it's most probably it's a mix of all, but there is 2 weeks after the meeting took place, well, the brainstorming session took place first, then there was a presentation to political parties. It was sent out to all political parties with an invitation to take these ideas of youngsters on board when they draft their political proposals for the elections and their priority program. So several parties took it on board in their political program, and even the city council saw that it is worth, even before the elections, to adopt this change already in public transport to be more going throughout the night. Let's go to the next slide. Then after this, so the brainstorming on priority setting from youngsters, then it is presented to political parties. That's what we see here. And then a lot of work. We had extremely good, on our webpage, which was specially designed, a lot of analyzing tool and assistance for teachers how to work with political parties, programs, how to analyze with keywords, with other things, working sheets, etc., online-wise usable or in printed version, how they can work. And in this aspect, we were largely focusing on those needs which we had identified beforehand, where youngsters say, we don't feel heard, but we want to belong to something. So a lot of things was actually in raising their awareness what their own interests might be, and whether there is someone else in the classroom which might share the same, whether it's climate change, whether it's transport or some concert or whatever, some improvements in the infrastructure or elsewhere. Is there someone else in my classroom whom I haven't talked to so much before, but who might share the same values, the same ideas, and perhaps where we can already create a small hub for some future ideas, because of course this kind of networking is crucial for democracy, not only pushing the button while voting, but also beforehand building your mind, creating networks and joint ideas. So there was lots of material on this and how to support material on the web page which we designed. Let's take the next slide. As I said, elections took place online. Online only in those 15 places, but you see also I have this voting booth. Well, actually we had voting booths in one municipality where youngsters from school parliaments, they called us and said, Andris, we need mock elections also in our municipality. It's such a shame we don't have it. Is it possible to join the project and to do elections in our municipality as well? So we decided not to have the same voting by digital tools, but there we took the paper version as well in those voting and made a one-day crash course with selecting ideas, with voting, and later publishing also the results there. Main was done digitally by QR codes. We had posters in our schools. A lot of social digital tools how to link kids or youngsters 16 or 17 of age to our webpage to analyze and read more and of course to participate. There were coffee chains who supported it, gave free coffee for people who participated and were spreading the idea. There were concert organizers who we could attract, who also supported with free tickets to concerts for those kids which shared the idea that, well, it is worth to participate in the elections, etc. So we're very happy that we had also private companies joining in and supporting this initiative. And at the end of the day, when we presented the results, as we were also not sure whether the results are going to be very much tending towards radicals or populists, we were from the very scratch said we need to have a debate where the results are not only presented, but analyzed by leading political scientists. And that's what we did in parallel to publishing the results. So there was an analysis which was provided right ahead to the results of the mock elections. Let's take the next slide. These were the regions which were, so it's 40 regions altogether. We had 15 only who participated. That might be part of the problem which we see in the next slide. Actually, that the participation was actually, and this is one of the interesting outcomes, I think, from the project, that we were breaking stereotypes with this project. Online participation for elections, at least in our project, did not prove to be higher than online, well, real paper elections for adults. Municipal elections is around 40% for adults participation. We see the best result in eastern part of Latvia, around 30. It's the smaller municipalities which reach a much higher turnout than you see. Riga is disastrous with only 3.7%, where actually the information sphere is already so full, so packed with all kinds of alternative information, that reaching through, you can post on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever, as much as you want. It's not enough. You need a package, which we were aware of, and we did offer a package, but actually for Riga, we did not succeed in fully with the posters, with the present events in present, and all the advertisement we did in internet, because it needs time to get used to mock elections, of course, and it needs a mix of both online and non-online forms. But actually, it's not really as we would have wished for, and actually, yeah, digital, if we could vote online, all of us would vote. This stereotype does not work. We have 2 more minutes, but I think 4 more slides, so I'll be fast with the next ones. Next year, we're going to organize it, and we are still in a discussion whether to do it purely online-wise. We're lucky in Latvia that we have 2 digital tools which are used by all schools where you can authorize, because one of the questions is, how do we ensure that there is not double voting, that there is not someone who's 18 or 15 who is voting, or actually they can vote, but it's not then counted within the measures which we want to publish, of course. So we're lucky that we have these 2 big digital players with whom we participated, but there's still a discussion whether to do it online-wise or in paper. We would rather go back to paper work, as also in the big elections we had lots of problems with the counting system. Actually, last year in Latvia, with our system, we did not have problems, but actually paper or digital is still a question to do. We were working also with the Art Academy in designing apps, how they would see the app working with, if it would be only digital. So there are great ideas there coming from the students, but still this discussion is going on. Let's take the next slide. Nordic experience, I don't spend your time on this. Let's take the next slide. Is simply to show there is actually a package. Whenever you talk about participation and online participation, I said this was mainly digitally, a digital instrument. Actually, and I didn't say one more thing which is important when talking before jumping into this slide. We broke 2 stereotypes, I think, with these mock elections. One of which is the narrative that if elections would be online-wise, it would be so easy, every one of us would participate. Most probably this is a stereotype and it's not really working. There needs to be a package. Second thing is youngsters did not vote for populists and radicals. It was, I myself was surprised, and I was expecting quite a bigger vote for radical and populistic parties. It was more or less the same mainstream centrist political parties which the youngsters voted for. And it's very interesting that actually, so these fears again, I think, which existed among the politicians were taken away also, I think, by the results. But as I said, well, this is my last slide there, is just showing that there's a lot of things which we're doing, of course, which are not only digitally linked, but also as a preparation of this. For example, one is, which got the Charlemagne Youth Prize actually this year for the national competition, was Uzticēšanās barometers. It's called the Trust Barometer. So where we went to youngsters, and with these Lego pieces, youngsters could express, they had first in pairs to work on priorities, what they would like to change in their school. How to build more trustful relation in school, whether it's renovation, whether it's to talk with a teacher who's aggressive, or where some other things go on. And then through a voting system, the ones which are more, those Lego figures which are standing more to the front, so these ones are the ones which were shared by more youngsters in the classroom, and the ones more in the backwards then only by 2 or 3 youngsters in the classroom. So a way how to energize also by this kind of playing thing. One might think that 16, 17-year-old don't like Legos anymore. It's wrong. This actually opens minds and hearts. They see, okay, I can go and I can do something if I share a common idea with some other school kid in my class. And then we have a lot of games. This is a game which is called Democracy Yes. The youngsters themselves build a state built on their priorities and discuss with extremely nice, not only these pieces in school, this is also, we have improved the Norwegian game there on training democracy. Another is best practice from northern states, or now we have an Erasmus big project with Transparency International, which we work on also elections on 16 plus, again, a new game which is designed there. So I hope that this idea inspires you as well. When doing it online-wise, again, it's the key moment is to ensure that there is no double voting. Well, all those basic principles, then of course not the difference between education and taking a side of a political party which you're not allowed in school. It's absolute no-go. Next year when we are going to do it, we will do it also with youth discussions, youth political party representative discussions in school, where there is definitely going to be opposition and position in the same room. Otherwise it's not possible and it will not be organized. So this type of things and improvements in future. Hope you might do something like that in your countries as well if you don't have it.